Hello. Well, welcome back. We are going to continue chapter 10, okay, about nested class. We discussed four topics in our last lecture. So in this lecture, we are going to see our first coding example regarding nested class. Okay, so in our textbook is Java nested class example 1. Let's take a look. There are two files in this example. Okay, the first one uh, is about the class called counter. Okay, so it has some data member, so instance variable. This is also instance variable, and this is a class variable. And let's take a look more about this class. Let's skip this for a little while, okay? We're going to come back. Then we have constructor with parameter, accessor, so nothing new, okay? An accessor, and this is also accessor. And this is mutator, okay. And this is another mutator, the increment, and this is a toString function equal. We already quite familiar, okay. And for this method, let's just come back later, okay. And if you take a closer look, you will see over here we have another class defined inside the counter class. Is it? So based on what we already discussed in last lecture, we know this is an inner class. Okay, well, let's take a look. Let's expand it. Okay, for this inner class, we have two instance variable. That's it. Okay. And then let's see. It doesn't have static members. That's constructor. Okay. But if you take a look at the constructor accesses this number small counter. Okay. And if you recall that this variable is from what? It's from outer class. Okay. Outer class is instance member. So it's non-static. Okay. Yeah. So you can see inner class. So this inner class can directly access the outer class instance member. Yeah. And similar for this constructor directly access. You can also access like the outer class name, then dot, and this is then dot. Okay. So there are multiple ways you can access. And these are get, so nothing new. Okay, and also over here, yeah, we are going to come back to explain this. And toString and equal, okay, so now we see this is the inner class, non-static one. Then let's see here, we have another inner class, yeah, nested class, okay, within the counter. This is the outer class, okay, and this is static nested class within the counter, okay, so it has non-static variable member non-static static member, and this is the static, okay? And for this one, if we take a close look, we will see it only accesses itself. Instance, itself as members, okay, so far. Let's continue look at the second constructor, yes. And yeah, can it access the outer class non-static? If we comment out of this, you try to access a non-static member of outer, you will see the complaints. The compiler will complain. It doesn't allow, okay. And we have accessor and string to string equal. Those are general, okay. So this is regarding it's called static small counter, okay. Yeah, after we see this, then let's get back here. Yeah, within the outer class, also the counter class. And if you take a look at this one, this is static small counter one, okay. So this is a member, and this is a static member of the outer class, okay. Yeah, the type, what's the type? The type is that static nested class. The static smaller, if you recall, that's a nested stat. Yeah, so in outer class, you can use nested class to define its member, okay? And then you can do new. Yeah, even though it's a nested class, you can use it to create objects. Yeah, so here, this is static small counter one is a member. Basically, it's an objects, and it's created with that static nested class. So similar with the static small counter two, okay? So here, both of them are the static member of outer class. Keep that in mind, okay? And then let's get back to that, yeah, to this one, okay? And over here, we also explained in our slides, okay? So for non-static inner class, you cannot define a static member. That's not allowed, okay? Okay, then here previously, if you recall, is it for this function, increment small count 1, okay. Over here at this one, if you recall, is counter class's static member. So it's an outer class. Static member, okay? And yes, it can access for this inner class, even, and it's non-static inner class, so it can access its static member, okay? And basically that static member, it's the object from the static nested class of counter. So that's why here it can also directly access, even though that's non, it's private. But you see over here within this inner class, it can still directly access that, yeah. So at a certain point, we can see that nested class provide the certain level of encapsulation that, yeah, but it is all within the outer class, okay? So similar concept here, okay? So that's a static member from outer class, but for non-static inner class, it can directly access, okay? And then let's see what else. And this is small count one, the small count two, and both of these are the static members of outer class. Yeah, so you can access, okay, within this inner class. You can directly access. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, and let's see what else. Okay, this inner class. Equal nothing. Okay, so that's all for this inner class. Okay, then let's take a look another one. So over here, if we take a look, um, this is a method of outer class. So a regular method, member method of counter class. Okay, what if it returns a two-dimensional array, is it? And yeah, within this method, if you take a look, within its implementation, then within it, we define a class called tapestry. Interesting, is it? Yeah, this is the local class because we define it within a block, is it? And everything else pretty similar as a regular class, okay? So yeah, so you can have instance variable, constants, and the constructor. Pretty straightforward, okay. Let's see, yeah, so pretty straight. So constructor, and just do some output. But if we take a look here, so for this method, it's implementation. So for all of the above, it's the definition of the class, of the local class. Okay, and then over here, yeah, we create an object. Yeah, we call it new, is it? And then you call the method of that local class. Okay, and we also return something from the local class. Okay, that's what this method does. You can see within we define, and then we also call constructor and then its respective methods. Okay. So that's regarding this method. It's outer class member method. Okay. And then let's take a look at the driver part for our counter class. Okay. And here we create two objects of the outer class. And if we take a look and then here, this S11 is the non-static nested class. So here we create three non-static uh, three non-static nested class with the corresponding constructor. So be careful when you call the constructor, and did we see we associate them with the respective objects. Okay. And then after the dot, then you call new the constructor. Okay, so be careful. So the non-static nested class must be associated with the outer class's objects. Okay. So basically S11 associated with C1, S12, so both of this associated with C1, is it? S21 associated with C2, okay? And then you can go ahead and call their respective methods, okay? And here we also call the outer class objects method, okay? And then we can call their corresponding to string, okay, to do the check. And also you can check if the objects are the same, okay? Structure equality, okay, so here we check the structure equality. And if you remember that get total, it's a static method, so you can directly just use the class name, okay? Then you get the respective small counters, okay? And get a static small counter string, that's also a static method, okay? You can directly go ahead to call it. Okay, and then next, let's see, this my static small counter. This object is from what? It's from that static small counter. So from that static nested class of counter. Okay, yeah. And how do we create the object? We do new. It's outside, okay, and then class outside class name, and then the nested class, the constructor, okay, you create this way, okay, and you can also call its static method to get the count, to get the total number. And lastly, we tested, if you recall, the local class. Okay, so we call that a create tapestry, is it? And it will return a two-dimensional array, okay? And then you can output it. Okay, so that's for this example, and we can run it and so it has the respective running result, okay, the output. Okay, so that's for this example. We are going to come back to discuss our second example in a short while. See you.